Hello everyone out there. Once again, this is Frank.
This is Leonard.
And we have special guest all the way from Scotland, Mr. Hamish Torrie.
Hello from Hamish.
You are from the CSR for Glenmorangie?
Yeah, I do CSR, which is corporate social responsibility for both brands. And basically CSR is all about building a sustainable future for the distilleries. I mean, if you think about it, Ardbeg distillery has been there since 1815, Glenmorangie since 1843. So the thing is, how do we keep those distilleries, beautiful distilleries, going for another 100 years? And for us, that's what sustainability is all about. So it's all about optimizing the environment around the distilleries. For instance, with Glenmorangie, we've got a very exciting project called the Deep Project, which is about returning native European oysters to the Dorman Firth.
Oh!
Linked to the fact that we installed an anaerobic digestion plant last year. Great cost, but that takes out what is called chemical oxygen demand out of the water in the Firth, from the outflow going from the distillery.
Right.
And that reduces that particular measure by 95%. And we thought, well, we go one stage further. And the best biofiltrators known to us and known to man maybe are oysters. Yes. Oysters clean up water like crazy. So we've started this lovely environmental enhancement project with some partners at Heriot-Watt University and the Marine Conservation Society. And our aim is to restore a 40-hectare reef to the Firth for the first time in 100 years.
Wow.
Oysters were wiped out by man, fished out, eaten by man 100 years ago with industrialization, and now we're going to return them.
That's amazing.
So it's all linked to the distillery. It's a very exciting project which I'm leading with a lot of other people, and it's very exciting. We sell whiskey, but we're learning how to create oysters.
Hey, why not, right?
Yeah, brilliant.
That's great. Wow. Well, I mean, good luck to you on that.
That's good stuff.
So I can't wait to see what your visitor center will look like in 5 years.
Well, it'll be it'll be under the sea. It'll be an aquarium. You'll walk through.
I mean, forget that other whiskey company that built their giant visitor center. I want to see that under the sea one.
Yeah. I think that'll knock them into a cocktail. Whoever they are, that other distillery.
Wow, whatever. That's awesome. Well, today, guys, what we're going to do something different. Usually we just do tastings for each whiskey and that's it. Today, we are going to do a compare and contrast. So for this particular video, we are doing the Glenmorangie series. So we're going to have a tasting of the 10. Then right after that, on the same video, we're going to... sorry, the 18. I apologize. I'm thinking the next video. Sorry, we're doing an Ardbeg one next. Sorry, thank you.
I was getting nervous.
Yeah, I'm not going to surprise you. Don't worry. So we're going to taste the 18, which is obviously their highest of their age series that you could get right now. Yeah. That's easy to get.
Yeah.
And then we're going to taste the Signet, which is obviously one of their higher end sides that you could get right now, which keeps on getting out of stock all the time.
It's always in demand.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
It rose about, in the Philippines at least, it rose 30% in less than a year.
Well, Signet.
Yeah, right.
Fantastic.
Yeah, great. I mean, fantastic.
How greedy of us.
For the brand, it's beautiful. It shows, that people love that particular brand, that particular item. So, no, it's great. So, let's go and start off right now with the 18.
Yeah.
And maybe tell us a little bit about it while we're
take it from there.
Yeah.
Well, it's as I can say, it's, to you both, it's wonderful to be back in the Philippines and in Manila, and I've, as it were, the last couple of years we've done some fantastic podcasts together, and it's great to talk to so many people, courtesy of Frank and Leonard. Now, the key thing about Glenmorangie is, of course, the distillery, as I was saying, has been around for a long time. And actually, one of the oldest expressions in our range is, in fact, Glenmorangie 18 years old, which has been a permanent part of the range for decades. And it's, if you like, it's a beautiful whiskey, 18 years old, and it sort of represents just the apogee, the ultimate of a traditional way of distilling, with an extra little twist in it, which I'll explain. By contrast, Signet is actually a complete innovation. which we began in around about 2001, 2002. But Signet itself is a very complex makeup of different whiskies. But if you think about it, Glenmorangie 18 years old is, as it were, at the end of the process through long maturation, whereas Signet, at the core of it, is what happens when you start at the beginning.
Okay.
With the malt. And I can tell you, in terms of contrast, they're completely, still mind-bogglingly Glenmorangie, but just totally different.
Right.
And as we all know, variety is the spice of life, so
Sure
let's give it a go.
Yeah.
So if you took the 18 years old as a start off, and this is 18-year-old Glenmorangie, which has got a nice frosted glass here, I see.
Yeah.
That's enough.
And if you swirl it around, maybe to get rid of the, we're in the middle of a thunderstorm here in the Philippines, so it's everything's a bit hot. But there you go. And as soon as you put your nose in, you get this lovely, rich, sort of almost chocolatey coming through. And what we do with Glenmorangie 18 years old, it's all bourbon cask maturation, okay, for the 18 years, except that at around about 15 years old, we take a portion of the bourbon matured Glenmorangie and we re-rack it into some Oloroso sherry casks.
Okay.
Not a big lot, just a 15-20%, and that gives an extra little sweetness to the whiskey.
Okay.
And that's how it's been for a long time, and it really is a fantastic balance. And as we always, everybody in whiskey will tell you, whiskey is all about getting the balance right.
Yes.
And I think that the balance here is perfect. So on the nose you've got the rich chocolatey flavour, but when you actually taste it, you get lovely, and also actually, before you taste it, you're getting lovely sort of scents, very lovely sort of fragrant flavours coming through.
Citrus.
Yeah, citrus.
And the backbone is clearly Glenmorangie.
Yeah, completely Glenmorangie, and that sort of oranginess shines throughout. But you're also getting lovely sort of almost jasmine scented flavours. And when you taste it, it's very rich, but it's very smooth, creamy, little bit of butteriness. But ultimately, what the sherry maturation has done is giving this sort of walnut and figs extra to the whiskey.
But this whiskey has been unchanged since
Time immemorial.
Oh,
okay. No, the reason I was asking is because as Frank and I found out in one of our early ventures,
Yes.
we tried some of the old Lasanta before it
Yes.
was
Yes.
altered in I think 2010. give or
Yeah,
take.
that's right.
So, but
Yeah,
the 18 has had none of that.
Absolutely. And
Okay.
this is chill filtered and bottled at 43% alcohol, and it's just a fantastically rich, elegant, very prestigious Scotch to have in your cabinet.
I mean, you can tell. I mean, that it's.
It's won so many awards, this product, and this expression, and I just love that sort of almost sort of honey finish to it, and that walnut, that nuttiness in it too.
The warmth is later,
Yeah.
which is great because some of the whiskeys that I feel aren't done right, the warmth hits the tongue right away, and that's when you tell it's just hasn't. Whoever it was, the master blender, master distiller,
Yeah.
whatever, he's maybe pressures from
Yes.
marketing. They're pointed out too soon, or they're,
Yeah, there's never any of that with Glenmorangie 18
Yeah.
years old. I mean, 18 years old, if you think about it, Glenmorangie Original and Glenmorangie 18 years old are probably, they represent the house style of the distillery.
right.
And Glenmorangie Originals, it's got a lovely sort of fragrant, flowery, oranges and peaches, fruitiness. And you still get some of that oranginess coming through,
Yeah.
that citrus oranginess coming through on this, but it's just enriched by a little bit of the sherry cask maturation. And as I say, for me, it's effortlessly smooth, rich, silky is another word.
Silky.
Silky is a great word to describe the Scotch.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
The intensity of flavors is what's surprising to me.
Yeah.
Because as many people know, Glenmorangie has very tall stills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I expect that out of a 10. But the flavor profile of a 10
Yeah.
kind of fits.
Yeah.
If I look at the distillery,
Yeah, yeah.
oh, that's exactly what I'd
Exactly.
expect. The intensity of the flavors here is kind of surprising because
Yeah.
you figure with stills that
Yeah,
tall.
yeah.
You lose some of the
Yeah.
intensity in reflux.
Yeah.
Well, and also with the being a chill filter,
Yeah.
you'd think it'd lose the silkiness because
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
no,
too.
because in spite of the chill filtration,
Yeah.
it's still very silky.
It's very,
going
it's silky
down.
and smooth. It's unlike say a non-chill filtered whiskey. It doesn't sort of, overtake the whole of your mouth. It's just beautiful smooth, and the finish to me is long, but it's not a sort of volcanic. Gosh, I've got to go and have some water.
Yeah.
It's just excellently beautiful. It's like a sort of almost a bit of ballet. It's beautiful, absolutely wonderful.
No, I agree with Frank. This has the, if I could describe it, I'd say this has the texture of a non-chill filter, kind of
it does.
that silkiness, but it doesn't have the weight.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
good. That's
it
good.
doesn't have the weight of
That's
a non-chill filter,
Yeah,
say
yeah.
46% whiskey.
Yeah, that's a good thing. But it's always been chill filtered, and it will always remain so. But it's just it's beautiful, and it's rare stock because we don't have that much 18 years old in the world, but we can make it regularly available, which is great.
Yeah.
And it's many people's go-to 18-year-old. And 18 is as you know, in single malt is a sort of, in our world in Britain, we talk about coming of age at the age of 18. You give your son or your daughter their first whiskey, and it could be an 18-year-old.
Yeah.
Fantastic. It's a great present. Absolutely fantastic present.
For those of you that out there that think whiskeys should always be non-chill filtered, try this whiskey.
Yeah.
This
Absolutely.
This kind of disproves all those people that complain about chill filtration.
Yeah.
It is lovely. I'm not saying all whiskeys should be chill filtered,
Yeah.
no, but the people that complain about it, I think they should really try this whiskey.
Yeah.
It'll make you think otherwise.
Yeah.
That maybe trust the master distiller, the
Yeah.
master blender, who maybe has a PhD or
Yes,
whatever.
yeah. Well, I mean, the master distiller is the one and only Dr. Bill Lumsden,
Yeah.
who is a legend in the world of making
Yeah.
whiskey. And he's been industry leader of the year 3 times. I mean, he's an absolute legend. And Bill takes great pride in all his products. But he would say, at the end of the day, my job is to make sure that Glenmorangie Original is perfect every single time, and also Glenmorangie 18 years old, because they really reflect what Glenmorangie stands for, which is elegance, silkiness, lightness, and that lovely oranginess.
Great.
So it's brilliant whiskey.
Which actually is a good lead into our compare and contrast
Oh
portion,
yes, very much so.
which is the Signet,
Yeah.
which is a totally different take on the standard Glenmorangie, correct?
Absolutely. Well, and you know that in the world of whiskey, we are constrained, rightly so, by the rules of the Scotch Whisky
Right.
Association in terms of what you can do and can't do in terms of creating new styles of whiskey.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be distilled and matured in Scotland in oak casks, right?
Yes.
And must be bottled at a minimum of 40% alcohol by volume. And that sort of creates the fence within which you have to work. And of course, Glenmorangie is famous over many decades of pioneering in the extra maturation of different styles of casks, say a port cask from Portugal, or sherry cask from Spain, or wine cask, the lovely Nectar d'Or, which is comes from Sauterne barriques, just an extra maturation. And the key point about Glenmorangie is that because the spirit itself is so light and delicate and fragrant, we can't dominate, right, with too much maturation. However, with Signet, we've not taken a maturation as the start point, we've actually taken the malt as the start point.
Yeah.
And because of the constraints of the Scotch Whisky Association rules, which we all adhere to, you can either innovate at the end with cask maturation, or you can do something at the beginning. And way back at the beginning of the millennium, we started experimenting with different types of malt, right? And eventually we decided that this was the way to go. And what we did was we got some dark roast chocolate malt, specifically roasted for us, right? Not the normal malt you would take to make Glenmorangie or even 18 years ago. We did some dark, high roast chocolate malt. And you'll probably be aware of this in the beer world, dark
Yeah.
Dunkels,
yeah.
all that sort of stuff.
Or we have chocolate stout
Chocolate,
in the US.
yeah, exactly. So it's exactly the same idea, but it's actually treating it in whiskey. And we were the first to do it, we think. And what we did was, at the beginning of the millennium, we laid down some Glenmorangie in just using dark roast chocolate malt as the start of the process. So that went through the mash tun, it went through fermentation, and then it went into distillation. And do you know what we had to do? We had to stop the distillery for a week to make it.
Oh wow.
And I remember the finance director at the time saying, this is ruinous. You can't stop making normal Glenmorangie for this experiment. We persuaded him, Bill and the team persuaded him, and we made this this experiment. We didn't know how it was going to turn out. And sure enough, we distilled it, put it into casks, and we let it go. And and after 3 or 4 years, Bill had a taste of it. He thought, God, this is too intense. I can't bottle this. I'll never be able to bottle this. So I'm going to have to wrap it in something else. And the intensity which you're about to discover in this is actually a sort of, it's an Aruba coffee sort of taste. It's almost like Bill had this fantasy when he was young about having Jamaican Blue Mountain coffee. and actually what we were doing was allowing him to bring his fantasy to life.
There we go.
So this Jamaican Blue Mountain coffee approach was applied to this dark roast chocolate malt, and that went into the casks. But after a few years, he said, it's too intense, so I'm going to wrap it. And so what he did was he wrapped it in some very old Exol Rosa sherry casks, some new oak, and some first fill bourbon casks.
Okay.
Right? So that intensity at the heart, which is you're about to taste, is also wrapped in this lovely sort of dark fruit richness.
Lovely.
So that's the explanation. We called it Signet because we're intensely proud of our company identity for the brand, which is the Signet logo. And that goes on all the bottles, the nice square panel, which comes from the hilt of Campbell Stone. Really part of the heritage of the north of Scotland. And we're hugely proud of it. And if you take off and comparing and contrasting to 18 years old, which is silky, rich, silky smoothness, this thing, Signet, as soon as you put your nose in, you get an intense sort of coffee, Aruba coffee, and it's also surrounded in what you might call, you can smell the sweetness of treacle and sort of plum pudding as well.
For your Americans or people, it's molasses.
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 Is that what you call it?
That's right.
In the US of A.
That's right.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
We've got Whisky Society Manila members in the USA.
Well, maybe we should because of me.
Okay. I assume we've got thousands of them in America.
No,
Yeah.
we've all said that was we've said it before. That's the 3 biggest words most commonly used by either whiskey tasters
Yes.
or by the UK.
Yeah.
That we have trouble with is number 1, treacle, number 2, heather, and number 3, Turkish delight.
Oh gosh. Okay. Well, I could have used any of those, but I won't. I will stick to treacle, which is just molasses, as you say.
Yeah.
Thick, syrupy, dark sugar.
Yeah.
So treacle, but surrounded with plum pudding. And plum pudding is a very UK type of dessert. It's it's a thing we have at Christmas time. But it's got that lovely sort of dried fruits.
Figs.
And also there was dried fruits and sultanas in there, but this is intense.
You know what?
This has much more dried fruit.
You know what? I was like in the US we have the fig Newton cookies.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's the deep dried figs
Yeah.
inside. This is exactly that.
Beautiful. And of course, that's if you look at the streaks coming down the side, that immediately tells you that this is non-chill filtered,
Yep.
right? Mm-hmm. And it's that those greasy streaks are what we call in whiskey the legs.
Yes.
So the legs are to demonstrate to you that this is non-chill filtered, and basically the non-chill filtration is instead of most whiskies are chill filtered, so chill filtration you reduce the whiskey to 4 degrees centigrade before bottling, and then that removes what we call the fatty lipids in the whiskey, But with non-chill filtering, you're not doing that. You're keeping the fattiness in the thing. And it doesn't give you taste. What it gives you is texture and mouthfeel. And texture and mouthfeel are really important to many whiskey aficionados.
Well, I think well, you know, I agree and disagree with that. I mean, for me, it doesn't directly give taste, but I do think it helps.
No, I didn't say taste. It's texture.
Yeah,
texture.
no, what I'm saying.
And mouthfeel.
Yeah, but it does help with the taste because
Oh,
it brings
yeah.
other
Yeah,
tastes
of
to the
course.
forefront. A lot of flavors to the
It's the
forefront.
full. It's
Yeah.
the full.
Experience.
It's the full symphony for that.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you take a wee taste, wow, you've got a lovely sort of mouth-filling. This aruba intensities there, but it's wrapped as lovely fruit, and also this sort of there's a curious sort of mintiness at the end, which is really beguiling. And Signet is a fantastic, after dinner. It's the end of the evening.
Yes.
Yeah.
When you've thrown out all your guests, you haven't given them this.
No. Maybe you have one or two that are whiskey
the
people.
very
favoured
few.
Yes.
You know, when I did, I'm gonna have to confess, when
Yes.
Frank and I did our private whiskey club,
Yeah.
we had a blind taste test, and Signet was one of the
Wow. Well, I'm not surprised.
blind. No, and I'll admit, at the very beginning, I was a heavy proponent that this can't be whiskey.
Really?
Yeah, because it just, I was never, because of the
It always
coffee.
had a sort of liqueur
Yeah.
feel to it.
Yeah,
didn't
the
it?
mouthfeel, the
Oh,
deep
that's
dark flavors.
wonderful.
No, you know, I'm not saying I loved it, but
Well,
it was just
you-
one of
you-
those things I was saying.
Says I being a little bit, pleased with ourselves. This is one at the IWSC, which is the Blue Ribbon event for all international wines and spirits. It's won gold several times, and it really is fantastic whiskey. And it's got different ages and styles. We don't have an age taken on it deliberately because that keeps the flexibility in terms of how we make it up. But what you've got to do is you've got to hit the style and stick to it. So the Signet that we made when we first launched this in 2007, exactly the same today.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we haven't reformulated. We've never changed it. It's got a very precise, but as Bill will keep telling me, a very complex recipe.
Yeah.
It's got some. This new dark roast chocolate malt at the heart. It's got some very old whiskey, way over 30 years old. It's got some younger whiskey. It's got some creamy bourbon vanilla. It's got some new oak. It's got a huge mattress, if you like, or patchwork of different things. Very, very complicated to make. And Bill, still to this day, thinks it's the best, one of the best things he's ever made. So there you go. And if you contrast it, just even in colour, you can see the difference.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, it's all natural colour. And then if you take it to the 18 years old, which if you remember, you could go back and have a little there's a certain amount of excitement to my right here. Frank is you're going to do a tap dance on the table in a second. And then you see that beautiful.
Yeah, you get definitely the 18. It's
18 is still mutating in the glass though, isn't it?
no, it has a really wonderful honey note. So the difference between this, if you
Yeah.
like honey and like
Honey.
coffee.
Yeah, honey and coffee. That's a good compliment. So there you have it. Those two Glenmorangies, really at the top end of our range in terms of price, rarity, availability, and also complexity. The complexity of making the Signet is astounding. And this year we'll be doing again Signet Week, where we set aside the distillery for 1 week just to make this.
Wow.
Which I can promise you is a major commitment.
Does this happen every year or is
Yes,
it
every year.
biannual? Okay.
Every year.
Oh.
And we're laying it down for the future. It hasn't been done for years, but it takes. I promise you, turning Glenmorangie into a Signet distillery for a week to make the chocolate roast malt go through the distillery, and you can smell the chocolate malt.
Yeah,
It's
wow.
fantastic. So that's what we do.
Great. Well, this is part one.
Yeah.
So stay tuned for Ardbeg, Compare and Contrast, where we're going to be featuring the 10, and we're going to be comparing and contrasting it to the and up. So stay tuned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.